live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India News Hour. DT India, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be conferred with the top awards of Guyana and Barbados to co-chair the second India CARICOM summit in Georgetown. US closes its Kyiv embassy over anticipated air attack. This comes after Vladimir Putin raises spectre of nuclear war. Netanyahu makes a surprise visit to Gaza, offers $5 million reward for each hostage returned. And Goa is all set to host the 55th edition of the International Film Festival of India. At least 101 countries to showcase 270 films. After concluding his constructive and fruitful G20 Brazil visit, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Guyana on the last leg of his three-nation tour. In an unprecedented gesture, he was received at the Georgetown airport by Guyanese President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, Prime Minister of Guyana Mark Anthony Phillips, senior ministers and other dignitaries also accompanied to welcome Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi. The Prime Minister was accorded a ceremonial welcome upon his arrival at the airport, and this is the first ever visit of an Indian Prime Minister in over 5 decades. In a social media post, Prime Minister Modi expressed confidence that his visit will deepen the friendship between the two nations. During the two-day visit, the two sides will exchange views on giving strategic direction to our unique relationship, which is based on shared heritage, culture and values. Prime Minister Modi will also join leaders from the Caribbean partner countries for the second India CARICOM summit. The summit will enable the leaders to renew historical ties and expand our cooperation into new domains. And from the airport, Prime Minister Modi went to the hotel where he was received by Guyana's President and Prime Ministers of Grenada and Barbados, besides Guyanese cabinet. In a special gesture, Prime Minister was handed over the key to the city of Georgetown by the Mayor of Georgetown as a testament to the close India-Guyana ties. The hotel lobby was adorned with vibrant cultural displays from India, and the atmosphere was filled with a sense of pride and celebration as they welcomed India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Inside the hotel premises, Indian and Guyanese community greeted Prime Minister Modi with traditional hospitality, showcasing their deep respect and admiration for the leader. Meanwhile, Guyana will confer its highest national award, the Order of Excellence, on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Barbados too will confer the prestigious Honorary Order of Freedom of Barbados on Prime Minister Modi. Dominica had too announced its highest national award, Dominica Award of Honor, on Prime Minister Modi a few days back. And with these two additions, the number of international honors for Prime Minister has reached 19. Prime Minister Minister Modi concluded his two-day Brazil visit with significant bilateral meetings with leaders of Australia, Brazil, Chile and Argentina. During their respective meetings, leaders took stock of full range of shared relationship, and with the Australian counterpart Albanese, Prime Minister Modi held the second India-Australia annual summit. Both leaders committed to further advance comprehensive strategic partnership.
On the second day of the G20, on the sidelines of the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held the second India-Australia annual summit and bilateral meeting with counterpart Anthony Albanese. Both leaders reiterated their commitment to further advance India-Australia comprehensive strategic partnership in myriad areas. Besides, they also welcomed the launch of renewable energy partnership. PM Modi said that in the last 2 years, India-Australia ties grew immensely in several sectors.
पिछले 2 वर्षों में हमारे आपसी व्यापार में 40% वृद्धि हुई है। रक्षा क्षेत्र में जॉइंट एक्सरसाइज, यंग ऑफिसर्स के बीच एक्सचेंज और हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स के डिप्लॉयमेंट को बढ़ावा मिला है।
While Australian Prime Minister too welcomed the launch of India-Australia Renewable Energy Partnership.
Today I am delighted to welcome the launch of the India-Australia Renewable Energy Partnership. This is a significant milestone in our cooperation. Our new partnership will boost two-way investment in renewable energy projects like solar PV manufacturing, battery mineral processing, green hydrogen and green iron.
PM Modi also held a bilateral meeting with Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva. President Lula told PM Modi that they have incorporated several things in their G20 which were also inspired from India's presidency. He added that Brazil wanted to reach the level of efficiency in organizing the summit that India had shown last year. Leaders also took stock of the full range of bilateral ties between two nations and reaffirmed their commitment to improve cooperation in sectors like energy, biofuels, defense, agriculture and more.
With the President of Chile, the two sides discussed the potential in areas such as trade and pharmaceutical cooperation. There are discussions on a commercial cooperation agreement that are ongoing between the two sides. Meeting between Prime Minister and the President of Argentina, Javier Milei. The two leaders exchanged their thoughts and their experience in handling issues related to governance.
After Brazil, Prime Minister Modi met Chilean President Gabriel Boric. India's ties with Chile are getting stronger across various sectors. The talks focused on ways to deepen relations in pharmaceuticals, technology, space and more. PM Modi said it is gladdening to see Ayurveda gaining popularity in Chile and ties in this sector can gain momentum. Besides, the Prime Minister also had an outstanding meeting with Argentinian President Javier Milei, after which he said that India cherishes the close friendship with Argentina. They talked about enhancing ties in energy, defense production, trade and culture. India-Argentina strategic partnership marks 5 years, adding immense vibrancy to bilateral relations. Earlier on day one of his Rio visit, Prime Minister Modi held bilateral talks with the leaders of US, the UK, France, Norway, Italy, Indonesia and Portugal. Bureau Report, DD India.
Also, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi witnessed a performance on Indian mythological epic Ramayana by students of Vishwavidya Gurukulam, a Brazilian organization dedicated to promoting Vedanta and Sanskrit.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankar Guru Paramparam Shri Jagan Mataram Devim Steta De Padmakasanam. Brasil Deshasya Punya Bhumyam Swagatam Vandanam Abhinandanam Cha Karoti Vishwavidyayaha Charyaha Vishwanataha Prathamam Vedanta Gurukulam Asmat Bihi Udgatitam Bhavishyati Vishwavidya Gurukulam Iti Namna.
चतुर्दशसमानीत्वा पुनरेष्याम्यहं पुरीम् इत्युक्त्वा हा हे सीते हे लक्ष्मण एकदा कार्यवैदेह्यं लक्ष्मणश्चोदितो
And now let's just get you some news from COP29 summit, where India's Union Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Kirti Singh, met with UK's Energy Secretary Ed Miliband in Baku, in Azerbaijan, on the sidelines of the COP29 climate summit. Both leaders discussed the ongoing UK-India climate partnership, including joint efforts in tackling climate change and advancing green technology. Earlier, Kirti Singh also attended a dinner hosted by the Indian ambassador to Azerbaijan, Sridharan Madhusudanan. Minister Singh interacted with Indian delegation for COP29 and members in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Secretariat. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be attending the 11th ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting in Lao PDR. The minister is in Vientiane in Laos from November 20 to 22nd at the ADMM Plus. Minister Singh will address the Forum on Regional and International Security Issues. It is the highest defence consultative and cooperative mechanism in ASEAN and a platform for ASEAN member states. Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday also met the Chinese Defence Minister Dong Hoon in Laos. On the sidelines of the meet, he will be holding separate bilateral meetings with his counterparts from other nations aimed at further enhancing bilateral defence cooperation. Earlier, India's Defence Minister also met his counterparts from Lao PDR, General Chansmon Chanyalat, and Malaysia's Dato Seri Mohammad Khalid Nordin. India's Chief of the Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi has embarked on a 4-day visit to Nepal on Wednesday. During his visit, General Dwivedi will be holding bilateral talks with his Nepalese counterpart and will be conferred the honorary rank of General of Nepali Army by Nepalese President Ramchandra Paudel. The visit aims to strengthen military cooperation between India and Nepal and will explore new avenues of collaboration between the two countries. And now let's get you next updates from the second day of the exercise Samyukta Vimochan 2024 that took place at the Porbandar beach on the Gujarat coast. The army is leading this drill of disaster response by Coast Guard, Air Force, Navy and state disaster response forces. In the scenario of a cyclone, choppers, inflatable boats, sniper dogs and drones will all pitch in to ensure synergy in case of a real cyclone. DD India's Nandita Dagar reports.
Samyukta Vimochan 2024. This is the annual humanitarian assistance and disaster relief exercise which is being led by the army, and it is aimed at improving the synergy and coordination between various agencies, which includes the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the State Disaster Response Force, the local weather departments, police, etc., the district administration, in providing succor to the people in the wake of a cyclone. So here there is a simulation of a very, very severe cyclone on the western coast of India between Porbandar and Okha, in the coastal state of Gujarat. And that is how the army is demonstrating. The Navy has pressed in its assets, including the Coast Guard. The army has deployed bridges like the Sarvatra and Bailey bridges, set up mobile hospitals or hospitals on wheels, a joint command and control center. The Air Force has winched up survivors on the rooftops of houses with the help of winching on a B-17, B-5 helicopter. The survivors are also being zip-lined from a building they were stranded on. Also, Gemini boats of the State Disaster Response Force are transferring the casualties from these affected areas via the sea to the Navy's hospital ship Talwar, because the area has been cut off, and of course there are no roads and bridges or routes to this place. So this is the entire scenario, the simulation, and all made in India assets are being deployed here. For example, the helipad for the Mi-17 and ALH helicopters is a polymer helipad which has been made completely in India. The drones that have been deployed for surveillance, the Drishti remotely piloted aircraft, that is made in India. So several assets are made in India in this exercise. Sanyukt Vimochan and 10 partner friendly countries have also sent representatives, and they are also witnessing the exercise. With camera person Jagmohan Pradhan in Porbandar in Gujarat, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. On the other side, this is what we have lined up for you. There are fears of hybrid warfare rising in Europe. Germany assumes sabotage and damage to Baltic Sea telecom cables. And Russian President Vladimir Putin approves a new nuclear doctrine. US says it sees no reason to adjust its nuclear posture.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and thank you very much for staying with us. Well, fears of a sort of hybrid warfare are rising in Europe after 2 undersea cables in the Baltic Sea were damaged. One of them runs between Finland and Germany and is the online cable between the Nordic country and Central Europe. Germany on Tuesday said that the damaging of the 2 undersea telecom cables in the Baltic Sea should be presumed to be a sabotage, while Lithuania's armed forces have increased their surveillance of its waters in response to the development. Germany's foreign minister stated that Russia's systematic attacks on European security architecture are unprecedented in their variety and scale. And to understand more about the ramifications of the development, we'll be talking to our colleague in a bit. Let's take a look at the story first.
Wir sind uns einig, unsere Sicherheit zu schützen und unsere Abschreckungsfähigkeiten zu sichern.
The Ukrainians are not only defending their own freedom and their country, but the Ukrainians have also been defending our European peace for 1,000 days and nights. Thanks alone are not enough. We must continue and even more so be prepared to do everything possible for the defense of European peace.
Der Vereinten Nationen und das in ihr.
And to understand more about the developments, joining us live is Deutsche Welle correspondent Chiponda Chembelu, joining us live from Berlin. Hi there, Chiponda. Now, we understand that the Baltic Sea communication cables damaged has obviously not gone well with the German establishment, hearing the foreign minister there. Give us an insight how and why Germany believes it's a sabotage. So what all do we know?
Well, we do know that there's 2 cables involved. There's one going between Finland and Germany, and there's another one going between Sweden and Lithuania. Now, a Chinese flagship, which was traveling from Russia, is suspected to have caused both of those incidents. And this is not the first time that a Chinese ship has damaged cables in the Baltic Sea. And that is, of course, why we've also heard from the German Defense Minister, Boris Pistorius, saying that nobody believes that these cables were accidentally separated severed. Those incidents, of course, took place within 24 hours of each other. One was on Sunday, and the next one was on Monday. The one between Finland and Germany was damaged on Monday. So, of course, it's also the connection, the time span between these two events. And, of course, both the foreign ministers of Germany and Finland have also issued a joint statement saying that they do believe that this could be part of Russia's hybrid warfare. So it's really the connection between those two events.
All right. Having said that, your foreign minister believes that severed Baltic cables cannot be a coincidence. You've elaborated on that as well. So the larger question now is that how secure is the Baltic Sea?
Well, this is, of course, not the first time that sabotage has happened there. And there's been, of course, other incidents involving infrastructure there last year and, of course, in 2022 with the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline. And while that is still being investigated by German authorities, there have been many conspiracy theories around that event with a lot of speculation about who was behind it, from Russia to Ukraine and even the United States government. Now, after the explosion, NATO and its allies, of course, stepped up their patrols in the Baltic Sea. But of course, with this recent cable cut incident, there are, of course, questions about whether they are doing enough. So to answer your question, of course, it is not as secure as what may have been thought before the incidents.
So what are European countries really doing to protect their critical infrastructure in water, sea waters particularly?
Well, if we look at the Baltic Sea, there are hundreds of kilometers of critical infrastructure, including for energy, so gas pipelines, for instance. And then there's also communication cables. And there are plans on top of that for offshore wind farms there. Now, securing every part of the Baltic Sea will remain a challenge. So European countries are trying to work together. And the fact that both Finland and Sweden are now members of NATO does improve security around the Baltic Sea. But of course, the Baltic Sea is an international body of water, and it isn't under NATO control. Russia has ports in Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg. So Russian ships are expected to be going through the Baltic Sea, as are other ships like Chinese ones, which might be heading to Russia. And this is why it is so hard to secure those waters for European countries.
All right, Chiponda, thank you very much. We'll leave it there as of now. Thank you for joining us live from Berlin. And shifting focus to developments on Russia-Ukraine war front, with the Russia-Ukraine conflict now is, in fact, it has surpassed 1,000 days long, and what remains a focal point of global concern are the escalating tensions between the two nations. Recent US support for Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory has intensified the situation, drawing some very, very sharp responses from Moscow. Our next report brings us all the details.
It's been more than 1,000 days since the Russia-Ukraine conflict began dominating global discourse. Amid growing fears of escalation, the US Embassy temporarily closed operations in Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, after receiving specific intelligence about a potential significant air attack. This development follows the United States' decision to allow Ukraine to strike targets deep inside Russia using American-made weapons. Ukraine recently targeted a Russian weapons arsenal in the Bryansk region with attack missiles, or the Army Tactical Missile Systems, marking the first time these missiles were fired across the border. The Biden administration's significant policy shift prompted a response from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who on Tuesday signed a decree expanding the circumstances under which Moscow could use nuclear weapons against a non-nuclear state, if that state is supported by nuclear powers. The US has not adjusted its nuclear posture in response to Russia's updated doctrine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his advisors are preparing for the possibility of a second Trump presidency, as the candidate has expressed criticism of US aid to Kyiv in the past. Bureau Report, DD India.
My colleague Jessica joins us live. Jessica filed this story a while back. Jessica, bring us up to speed with the latest on the developments that you brought us in your report. And also, is there any direct or indirect connection as far as the closure of the US embassy in Kyiv is concerned, and the fact that Ukraine firing the tactical missiles, US-made tactical missiles into Russian domain?
Well, there has been an update recently where the United States has approved another military package of $270 million for Ukraine that would include munitions, also tanks, to further bolster support for Ukrainian military that is currently taking on Russia in the Kursk region, of course also targeting other areas where there is military incursion. Given that in mind, we also are getting to understand that the Americans have also provided anti-personnel mines, which have gained quite a lot of criticism in the recent past because of the usage of those mines and the fact that they would remain in that region for a very long time, and the kind of destruction it can lead to is by far questionable and quite lethal. So that has been the update in the kind of American support we've seen toward Ukraine. As far as the embassy concerned, we're also given to understand that many other embassies of the West have started, shutting down operations temporarily, or at least limiting their staff in their embassies. Those partners are, of course, also aligning their interest and, of course, looking at the threat perception at this point, where the Russians, on the other hand, have made it clear that targeting their weapons facility in the Bryansk region, which is almost 250 miles away from Kremlin, so quite close, is not going to be taken well. But what kind of response would it invite? One will only have to wait and see. But so far we've seen the Russian president has now changed the nuclear doctrine, or updated the nuclear doctrine to the effect that any attack on Russian soil by a non-nuclear state with the aid of a nuclear armed state would be considered a joint attack and would see a retaliation. But what would that retaliation be? Would it be now an escalation towards the nuclear front? One will have to only wait and see.
You spoke about the nuclear front. So it seems that President Vladimir Putin is clearly upping the ante when it comes to the nuclear spectre, so to say. What is the underlying message here?
Well, the new aid being given to Ukraine right before Donald Trump takes the presidency, and he's sworn in on the 20th of January, and the transition period is on, the transition of power period is on. While President Biden had promised a lot more in terms of military aid to Ukraine in the recent past, but there was a lot of hesitation in terms of providing the ATACMS or the Army tactile missile systems, also because these are advanced missiles and can target deep into Russian territory, as it did yesterday when the missile launch was announced, although it was not confirmed by the Ukrainian side. But we do know from the Russian side that 5 missiles were struck down, and one, which we know, destroyed a small weapons facility at Bryansk. So the stakes are high, but when it comes to this further spreading into an out-and-out nuclear war, the chances of that are grim, because you hear from the Pentagon as well as the White House, they seem to believe that this kind of posturing has taken place in the past. There have been updates in the nuclear doctrine, there have been threat perceptions, but will it really culminate into reality?
Jessica, very quickly,
we
need to take a break here a little. So is this also part of the posturing or some sort of a psyops propaganda that some of the Western nations, with US taking the lead, shutting down their embassies in Kyiv? Very quickly.
Well, that's all for the moment. Everything understood through the lens of threat perception at this point. There are various narratives floating around, and it's difficult to sort of gauge facts from the kind of situation we've seen, on how things are becoming much more difficult to comprehend in terms of how the war will now escalate, and how the conflict would now take a different turn, because with these counter strikes and with the Russians also sending in drones towards the Ukrainian territory as you and I speak, it'll be slightly difficult to sort of comprehend on how that moves forward. But what we do know is there is no out-and-out nuclear war taking place in the near future, because we've been, of course, the threat perception remains, but I think it's limited to that for now.
Yes, let's track those developments in the next 72 hours, at least on that story. But Jessica Taneja, many thanks for joining us on that story from the newsroom. And still to come on DT India News Hour. Coming up next, we will be talking about Maharashtra, Jharkhand. They vote in assembly polls today, counting to be done on 23rd of November. Delhi government proposes artificial rainfall as an emergency measure to mitigate pollution. Thanks for staying with us on DT India. You're watching DT India News Hour and I'm Sakal Bhatt. And before we get you some other stories, let's do a quick recap of the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be conferred with top awards of Guyana and Barbados to co-chair the second India CARICOM summit in Georgetown. US closes its Kyiv embassy over anticipated air attacks. This comes after Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, raises specter of nuclear war. And Benjamin Netanyahu makes a surprise visit to Gaza and he offers a $5 million reward for each hostage returned. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Gaza on Tuesday and said that Hamas would not rule the Palestinian enclave after the conflict in the region ends. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is set to vote on a draft resolution on Wednesday calling for a ceasefire in Gaza to end the violence.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asserted that Hamas would not rule the Palestinian enclave after the war had ended and that Israel had destroyed military capabilities of Hamas. He said this during his visit to Gaza with his defense minister and army chief.
Hamas will not rule Gaza. We are eliminating its military capabilities in a very impressive way. We are moving on its governmental capabilities and the hand is outstretched. Hamas will not be in Gaza. We are also making an effort from this place and everyone to locate all hostages and return them. We are not letting up on this. We will continue to do this until we get them all.
The UN Security Council will vote on Wednesday on a draft resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza to end the conflict. However, the US may veto the resolution due to its strong alliance with Israel. Meanwhile, senior US and Israeli officials will meet early next month for the first talks in a new channel set up by Washington to assess civilian casualties. The US is continuing its efforts for a ceasefire in Lebanon. White House envoy Amos Hochstein met Parliament Speaker Nabir Berri in Beirut this week. US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said an agreement to end the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah was within reach on Tuesday.
So you might have seen that the President's Special Envoy Amos Hochstein was in Beirut today, meeting with the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament. He gave a press statement after that where he made clear that we have made significant progress and that an agreement is within reach, but it's going to take decisions by both parties, by both Israel and Lebanon, to actually get an agreement, and that's what we're going to continue to push for.
Meanwhile, strike continues across the borders as smoke rose from the rubble in Lebanon's Nabatea, and emergency crews search and work to clear debris from heavily damaged buildings after blasts hit the town. Bureau Report, DD India.
And on to some election-related updates from India. Voting in the states of Maharashtra and Jharkhand will conclude soon at around 6 p.m. IST, and with 45.53% voters turnout recorded by 3 p.m. In Maharashtra, a total of 4,136 candidates are contesting across 288 constituencies, while polling in Maharashtra is being conducted in single phase. Jharkhand is voting in the second and final phase today. With 61.47% voting till 3 p.m. local time, over 500 candidates are contesting in 38 of the total 81 assembly seats in Jharkhand. Counting of votes in both the states will take place on Saturday. Well, in Maharashtra, many celebrities also exercised their franchise, particularly in Mumbai, where Bollywood actors including Ranbir Kapoor, Kareena Kapoor, Madhuri Dixit and others also cast their franchise. Prominent celebrities, siblings Farhan Akhtar and Zoya Akhtar also exercised their franchise. Actor Ritesh Deshmukh with his wife Janelia also cast their vote in the ongoing polls. Other Bollywood celebrities like Anupam Kher, Subhash Ghai and Ali Faisal were also seen casting their votes. Shifting focus to IFFI in Goa, where 55th edition of the Indian International Film Festival in picturesque Goa is being held in the West Indian coastal state. Now, cinema lovers have already queued outside the theatre to catch the opening film of IFFI 2024, The Better Man. That's the title of the film, and DD India correspondent Deepika gets you an exclusive interaction with the theatre lovers and what are the key takeaways they shall take back with them when they watch these spectacular films. Take a listen.
And now it's time to bring you all the buzzing excitement straight from Goa, from the grounds of Inox. And here you can see a long line where people are waiting for the opening film, which is The Better Man. Let's talk to them. How excited are you about this opening film, which is The Better Man?
Very excited. This is my first time in IFFI and pretty excited to watch this film. So I've been waiting in the queue for the last 2.5 hours, I guess. Yeah.
You've been waiting here in the line since past 2.5 hours. What really motivated you to come here? What is that thing that excited you about The Better Man?
Well, Better Man being one part, like it's been directed by Michael Gracie, and then we being film enthusiasts, like, and this is the first day and it's an opening film, so I'm hoping that it will be a great movie to watch. And
that's great. People have been waiting here since like more than 2 hours to get to the stadium inside the movie theaters and watch the movie. There are more people here in the queue. We would like to talk to you and understand what is your understanding of IFFI and how excited are you about this particular event?
So this is my first festival, first IFFI actually. I'm from FTI. We both are from FTI, and yeah, it's day one, so FTI gave us the opportunity to attend IFFI, and we are grateful for that. Yeah.
Being from FTI, what sort of learnings do you take away from IFFI?
IFFI, we have attended festivals before. Let's see. Mostly we are dependent on master classes, international films, and experimental cinemas. We'll get to meet new filmmakers, different filmmakers, and hopefully, the maestros of cinema, so that we can learn from them.
All right. And now you both have been talking about the director of this movie. Tell us more about it. How excited are you for the movie?
We are in totality excited about IFFI, and I think we are starting with the entry.
And Prasar Bharati is launching its OTT platform called Waves on the opening ceremony of IFFI, which promises to be a game changer in the world of content creativity and technology. DD India's Deepika got an exclusive conversation with the CEO of Prasar Bharati to understand more about it. Take a look.
Right now we have with us the Chief Executive Officer of Prasar Bharati. Sir, thank you so much for talking to us. First of all, we would like to know what Waves hold for the audience and why Prasar Bharati has taken up such a noble initiative.
From the very inception, Akashvani and then subsequently Doordarshan, and then when they came together as Prasar Bharati, they have been at the forefront of technological innovation in bringing newer forms of content to the audiences in India. As time has gone by, we have moved from basic radio broadcast to FM radio broadcast to television broadcast, high definition television broadcast, color TV broadcast, free dish. All of these initiatives were all part of the Prasar Bharati, Doordarshan, Akashvani family. And as the audiences have discovered the newer media of consuming content, digital is one medium which has gained quite a lot of prominence in these days and times. So it is only fitting that Prasar Bharati also forays into this domain. And one of the advantages of this would be also that the content would be available to all audiences, even if they are in the remotest parts of the country or even outside the country. There is a lot of demand for Indian content across the board, across the world. The Indian settlers in various countries also remember their times here in India through these programs. And of course, they want to keep updated with the news, with the entertainment of Indian origin. In waves, in this platform that we are now launching shortly, we will also be making provisions for sharing some of the informative content that is being produced by the ministries of Government of India, by various state governments, and some rare archival material of photographs, of magazines and journals and e-books. We would also be providing facilities for e-games. So, e-shopping, which is also gaining a lot of prominence these days, is also going to be a part of waves. So there is something for everyone, and I would request the audiences to download Waves later today and be a part of this experience of this entertainment ki nayi leher.
All right, there you heard. So don't forget to download the app and experience this unique opportunity. With camera person Alok, this is Deepika reporting for DD India.
CEO Prasar Bharati Gaurav in exclusive conversation with DD India. And also India's Minister of State for Science and Technology announced the scientific completion of the indigenously developed antibiotic Netramycin Minaf, which is effective against community-acquired bacterial pneumonia caused by multi-drug resistant pathogens. The minister said that antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, has emerged as a global public health crisis comprising the effective prevention and treatment of infections.
We have more than 8,000 biotech startups, but going by the theory of relativity, because that's what makes the difference, we just had 50 before 2014. So the point important to be noted is that we have from 50 gone up to more than 8,000, nearly 9,000 in the last few years. And our bioeconomy was just about 10 billion US dollars, which is now about more than 130 and nearly 150 billion dollars. They're looking forward to the projection of $300 billion. The first indigenous antibiotic against resistant infections from India is also in keeping with the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India. So we have made in India something not only for Indians, but also who are non-Indians. So that's a huge contribution.
Delhi's air quality remains in a severe plus category, with toxic pollution choking the capital for a second consecutive day. The Delhi government has proposed artificial rain to combat the crisis, seeking central intervention. But is this solution feasible? DD India's Tapash Bhattacharya spoke with VK Soni of the IMD, or India's Met Department, to explore the practicality of cloud seeding.
Joining me is Dr. VK Soni, a senior scientist with IMD, and who is also heading the environment and the research wing in the Met Department. Will Delhiite and NCR people will have a sign of relief?
At present, the air quality index is in severe category. Yesterday, it was in severe plus category. So little improvement is there, but still we think that air quality will remain in severe category for next 2 days.
Do we see any sort of a relief in the next week or two?
Air quality will more or less will remain in severe category. Little improvement will be there in next 2 days, but still it will remain in severe category.
Do we have enough cloud moisture here in Delhi right now?
Cloud seeding is not a viable solution to control the air pollution. During winter season, the Delhi NCR moisture level is very low, and cloud formation is not there. These clouds are not seedable actually.
Right. We can see right now, this is the map, this is the current scenario. There is no cloud as such in Delhi NCR region. And this is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So for cloud seeding, you need right amount of cloud, right quality of cloud, then only it is possible.
And it's an expensive process also.
It is expensive, but cloud has to be there. So right now the clouds are not there, and winter season we are not expecting much clouds over this region.
So all those people who are talking about the fact that cloud seeding might just be an answer to mitigate the high level of pollution in the country, well, that's Dr. V.K. Soni stating that that's not the case. With camera person Vimlesh, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for GD India from Delhi.
Well, still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next, Bitcoin hits a record high, breaches 94,000 mark. And it's an end of an era. Rafael Nadal retires after illustrious career.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour on Sakalbar. Let's move on to some more news and updates. Bitcoin rose to a record high, about $94,000, amid reports that Donald Trump's social media company was in talks to buy crypto trading firm Bakkt. Bitcoin, the world's biggest and best known cryptocurrency, has more than doubled this year. It was last at $92,104 in Asian hours on Wednesday, having touched a record high of $94,078 just towards the end of the previous session. Cryptocurrencies have surged since November 5th US elections as traders expect Trump's support for digital assets to result in a more favorable regulatory environment and revive Bitcoin after a slow period. News coming from United Kingdom. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, has said that inflation is stable in the UK while the cost of living remains a problem for ordinary families. He added current Labour government is turning the page on economic instability. British inflation jumped by more than expected last month to rise back above the Bank of England's 2% target, and underlying price growth also gathered speed. In October, the consumer prices in UK rose by 2.3% annually, followed by a rise of 1.7% in September.
The cost of living is a continued problem for working families across the country, but it is good news that inflation is stable and close to target at 2% today. And I think businesses, investors and working people across the country will be happy that we have a government that takes economic stability properly and will not put us back into the chaos that we saw under Liz Truss and the Conservatives.
Well, no business sector has seen as much of an uptick in recent years as the defense sector, for obvious reasons, as two major conflicts are playing out in Ukraine and West Asia. And for many businesses, the question is how to position themselves in this environment. The CEO of Pan-European Airbus says that some consolidation might be helpful. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle, and he joins me from Berlin to give us a perspective on this story. So what exactly are you hearing, Lars, from Airbus?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, the group's CEO, Guillaume Faury, says that Europe's space industry, he initially started with that, but later expanded his comments to defense, needs to restructure and consolidate in the face of private US competition and investments in China and elsewhere. To quote Monsieur Faury, he says, we are fragmented in a world where some giants have emerged, especially in the US, but not only. They are also growing in China. As for the US, SpaceX has become a giant in the field, supplying NASA with rockets and technology and pretty much single-handedly saving the country's space program. Now, SpaceX is obviously owned and run by Elon Musk, who is now President-elect Trump's best buddy. And with that, his standing and most certainly the standing of his company will grow. So as not to be left in the dust, the Airbus CEO says that his company and France's Thales Alenia Space and Italy's Leonardo are in early talks on a possible tie-up of their individual satellite activities.
Having said that, how big is the defense sector in Europe? If you could just share with us some numbers.
I guess the most interesting number is on the growth we've seen in the sector. EU defense spending has increased by 31% since 2021 and is expected to reach 326 billion euros this year. That is according to figures from the European Defense Agency. Now, that figure represents 1.9% of the European Union's gross domestic product. And that's another interesting number because it's just shy of 2%, and that is the magic number that's been discussed for so many years now. It used to be the number NATO countries were expected to spend on defense, but following the rise of Trump in the US and taking into account the possibility that the US will be less interested in the NATO than it used to be, it is widely expected that European countries will spend more.
Thank you, Lars, for joining us from Berlin on that story. Moving on to some more news, Croatia is set to become the latest European country to tackle tourism-related housing price crunch. A package of draft laws was approved in the Croatian parliament last week, but the final nationwide legislation will only be passed following wider discussion and likely amendments. Croatian Finance Minister Marko Primorac said the laws will raise taxes on houses for rent and lump sum tax on tourist rental, but will not affect housing units. Cities from Malaga and Barcelona in Spain to Athens and Budapest have clamped down on short-term rentals in an effort to alleviate housing shortages and reduce prices for local people. And it's time now for some sports updates. And we begin with the defending champions India taking on China in the finals of the Women's Asian Champions Trophy at Rajgir Hockey Stadium in Bihar on Wednesday. India secured its place in the finals with a 2-0 win over Japan in the semis, with Navneet Kaur and Lalresh Simani on the score sheet in the space of 8 minutes. Meanwhile, China made it to the summit clash on the back of a 3-1 win over Malaysia in another semi-final. India have remained unbeaten in the tournament. The run includes 3-0 victory over China in the league match. Well, from a helmet signed by 7 times Formula One world champion Michael Schumacher to Paul McCartney's guitar, a range of items will go under the hammer this week in Britain. Some 200 items will go under the hammer at the Surrey Auction House Sporting Memorabilia sale on Wednesday. Among these are a 2004 racing season replica helmet signed by Schumacher himself, limited edition book about the late Brazilian soccer star Pelé. Other soccer items for the sale include 1956 menu signed by Manchester United players, some of whom died in the 1958 Munich air crash. The auction will follow on Thursday with more than 300 lots being offered. And among the highlights is a Hofner violin bass signed by veteran musician Paul McCartney and a signed limited edition print of the cover for Oasis 2006 Stop the Clocks compilation album designed by British artist Peter Blake.
On the football front, we've got the 1966 squad signed photograph, but with also a separate signed page in a presentation display. Also on the football front, Manchester United, so anything sort of pre-Munich air crash tends to have a premium auction. We've got a signed menu by a number of the stars who were involved in that tragic crash, including Duncan Edwards. So that should do quite well in the auction itself. The estimate on that about 1 to 2,000.
Rafael Nadal's illustrious career came to an end on Tuesday as Spain lost to the Netherlands in the Davis Cup in Malaga. Holding back tears, Nadal tried to compose himself in front of his fans, who also got very emotional seeing their legend retire from the sports of tennis. And in his speech, Nadal thanked his fans, said that he was leaving tennis with peace of mind, with a personal legacy he can be very proud of.
Tennis legend Rafael Nadal bit his lower lip and his reddened eyes welled with tears as he stood alongside his Davis Cup teammates for Spain's national anthem at what him and everyone knew might be the last match of his career. Hours after Nadal's loss to both Doordarshan of Netherlands was over, the evening did not turn out to represent the 22-time Grand Slam champion's farewell to professional tennis because the Dutch eliminated the Spaniards in the quarterfinals just after midnight. And it was during an on-court post-match ceremony to honor Nadal that he cried and cried at the singing chorus of Rafael from the spectators. At the video showing highlights from his more than 2 decades on tour and the collection of recorded tributes from tennis legends like Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic.
Of course, have been an emotional day, nerves before what can be my last singles match like a professional. That's the way that I felt that. And then, yeah, of course, the emotions, feeling the national anthem for the last time like a professional have been, very special. In some ways, good. Maybe if that was my last match, that was my last match. If nothing happens, I lost my first match in the Davis Cup, and I lost my last one. So we closed the circle.
One of the greatest tennis players in the history of the game, Nadal won everything there was to win and defined a golden era in the sport. His 92 singles career titles include 22 Grand Slams, a record 14 French Open titles, and Olympic gold at Beijing 2008. He also collected a doubles gold at Rio Olympics 2016 and 4 Davis Cup titles. A light projection featuring a 10-meter image of Nadal was also projected near the Eiffel Tower to mark the nearing end of the iconic player's career in the sport. When the matches, the ceremony, the night, and his career were over, Nadal hugged his teammates and left the court, pausing to wave a goodbye to his fans one last time. Sports Desk, DD India.
So it's curtains down for legendary Rafa. And with that, it's curtains down in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world in DD India mobile app. This app is available on both your Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thank you for tuning into DD India News Hour. Thank you.